Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this wonderful, fantastic Tuesday afternoon. I'm incredibly tired. I got a finals project that I have to do later on today and some couple more finals tests that I have to take. It's very, very hectic. It's crazy going on right now over here, and I'm sure a lot of the college students are also feeling the craziness of finals week. And on the bright side, though, in the first segment, we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys losing at home again. It's like a ritual for them. They always do this, at least so far this season, unless they play against the Giants or something like that. That's why I have my Cowboy hat on, because I love talking about when Dallas loses. Then in the second segment, we are going to do some bowl game predictions for college football. I'm only going to cover the bowl games that aren't related to the college football playoffs. So, that's it. The only games that I'm going to be going over are the college bowl games that do not count for the NCAA playoffs, because the playoff games, I believe they're bowl games in of themselves, but I'm not going to talk about that yet. Then in the third segment, we're going to recap all of the games that took place in the NBA over the weekend, as well as the one game that took place yesterday if we have time. Then in the fourth segment, I'm going to talk about what this NBA season has proven so far. I already did two parts to that before. I'm going to do a third part and follow up on some of the things. And after that, we have a fifth segment at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that if you guys are interested. Before I begin, I would like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether it's a hot take, whether it's a burning question, or whether it's something that you're just dying to share. We're all ears. If you really want your comment and or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. They really help the show, make it much more interactive between myself and you guys. And if Super Chat's not your thing, you can always use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way as well. Either or really helps the show, and either or makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead into this fantastic, beautiful first segment, which is it's always a great day when the Cowboys lose, especially at home. The only home win that they have is against the New York Giants, and that was on Thanksgiving. And I mean, they have not won a home game this season aside from the Giants. So it's very, very, if you're a Cowboys fan, I'm sure you're incredibly disappointed, especially with the way that this game ended. So the final score of this game was 27-20. Joe Burrow threw for 3 touchdowns. He threw for 369 yards, completed 33 of his 44 passes, and he did throw 1 interception, but aside from that, a great game from Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase was fantastic as well. 177 receiving yards with 14 receptions, along with 2 touchdowns as well. And it's not really like the Cowboys on offense. They were all right. They just weren't great. Cooper Rush, he ended with 183 passing yards, excuse me. And he also ended the game with 2 touchdowns, but he threw 1 interception. Now, he threw the ball 30 times. He threw the ball 31 times, completed 16 of those passes that he threw. And when you throw the ball that many times, but you only gain 183 passing yards, I think there's a little bit of a problem in the passing game. And it seems a little bit weird because CeeDee Lamb, he had 93 yards in this game and 1 touchdown. So it's like I'm really surprised that Cooper Rush didn't end up with more passing yards in this game. But most of the Cowboys' offense was on the ground. Rico Dowdle ended up rushing for 131 yards, and he did not record a touchdown. In fact, there was no rushing touchdowns for the Cowboys in this game. But really, it didn't seem like the passing offense was all that aside from CeeDee Lamb. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Also, it should be worth noting that this game was broadcasted on Disney Plus, where The Simpsons were playing in the game. So it was like Bart, Lisa was going up against Homer, and I haven't really. It's been a while since I watched The Simpsons, so I have no idea which characters were on which, and it's also like it was really funny because like Lisa scored a touchdown twice on the Cowboys. And I don't really, if there was any other embarrassing way that the Cowboys could lose, it would be allowing Bart or Lisa to score a touchdown on them. I thought that was very funny, very entertaining stream because it's like not only does it introduce younger children to the game of football, but I mean it's just funny to make jokes because like now I can say that Bart Simpson just absolutely torched the Cowboys defense, and it was so funny. Like he said, Bengals rule, Cowboys drool. That was very funny, and what was it's almost as funny as how the game ended, by the way. So, just a little bit of a recap. The Bengals, they opened up with a punt, but then Dallas surprisingly opened up with a touchdown. They were the first on the board. Again, very, very surprisingly. And the Bengals, they responded with a touchdown. Because, I mean, they're the Cowboys. It's like, when the Cowboys score on you, it's like, okay, something's up. Let's lock in. And they opened it up with a touchdown to end the first quarter. Now, the second quarter, of course, the Cowboys, they open up with an interception because they're the Cowboys. That's what happens. Then the Bengals, they turn it over on downs, which puts the Cowboys in a little bit better field position, and so they take a field goal. But the Bengals responded with that with a touchdown because it's like, oh, you like kicking three-pointers? You like shooting threes, as I like to call it, because field goals are 3 points? I'm going to score a touchdown. Then the Cowboys ended up punting, and then the Bengals showed that they can shoot threes of their own, and they made a field goal to make the score 17-10 to end the half. Then the Cowboys, they opened it up with a touchdown to tie the score 17-17, but then the Bengals gave it right back to them because they were feeling so generous, and it is the season of giving. It's the Christmas season, so they just felt like giving the ball to the Cowboys. Then Dallas answered with a field goal. Then the Bengals responded with another field goal. Then the teams exchanged punts for a little bit until the Bengals punted for a second time. So, hear this. The Bengals, they went 3 and out. Well, first, the Bengals the Bengals ran a couple plays. Then they punted. Then Dallas ended up punting it back. Then the Dallas, actually no, it was the Cowboys that started punting first. Excuse me, I am so tired. Then the Bengals punted. Then the Cowboys punted it right back, and then it was set for the Bengals to punt it. Right? Now, here is where it gets really, really funny. So, the Cowboys, they blocked the punt, and guess what happened? And you'd think that they recover the ball and they win, right? This is in the fourth quarter with only a couple of minutes left. No, they do not. What they do is they completely mess up the blocked punt because that man right there cannot catch the ball. So the way that the game ended was the Cowboys, they blocked the punt, and now the score is tied. Remember, this is very, very important. Mistakes, you have to limit them in these scenarios. So they blocked the punt. That's very good. Now, the ball is going in his direction, and he can't grab it. But because he touched it, it went right through his hands. Because he touched it, the Bengals, they then got the ball. And the play is, according to the NFL rules, the play is blown dead. So, because the receiving team ended up touching the ball, it's not a turnover. And because either way, they were already well beyond the first down marker. But it was a turnover. And then the Bengals ended up getting the ball because it touched him. And then, guess what happens? Jamar Chase, or if you're watching the Disney Plus stream, Lisa Simpson then caught the ball and completely torched the Cowboys defense to score the game-winning touchdown to seal the win. The reality is that it was Jamar Chase, but watching Lisa score the touchdown at the end of the game was way funnier. It was a 40-yard touchdown, and it sealed the win for the Bengals. And there was not enough time for the Cowboys to really do anything afterwards. And it's not like the Cowboys were going to do anything afterwards, but it's just a funny way for the Cowboys to lose the game. Again, it's hilarious. It's almost as hilarious as this instance right here where Dak Prescott decided to slide because they thought that they had some more time to make a play. It's very, very funny because it's like all he had to do was catch this ball. And you can see that the ball is is almost near like the 40-yard line, meaning that they only had to push the ball a couple of yards to get in a field goal range and be able to win the game in the end because, the game is tied. So they botched it, of course, because this is Dallas right now. Saddest franchise and the saddest organization on the planet. I thought that game was great the way that it ended. I found it hilarious because it's like, and I also really enjoyed the Disney Plus stream. And I'm sure a lot of people also enjoyed the Disney Plus stream. Probably people that are a little bit older than the targeted audience like me, but still very, very entertaining game. And I really like how it ended with Dallas messing up on a muffed punt. It is literally like the most Dallas way to lose. We talk about how the Bears, they always find creative ways to lose. This one right here, the Cowboys, I think they trumped all of those ways to lose. I mean, and they found a lot of ways to lose. They've lost in blowouts, they've lost in really close games where their punter or kicker ends up getting blocked. And they've also lost a game because they didn't know how to manage time and they didn't call a timeout. It's like they have creative ways to lose, but this one right here, this play right here, I'm actually gonna show it again because it's so glorious. This play right here is one of the most creative ways to lose a football game I've ever seen. But with that being said, we're done talking about Dallas. As much as I love talking about how bad Dallas is at football, we have to go into the second segment where I talk about these bowl games. And I'm only going to talk about the bowl games that aren't in the college football playoffs. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. Some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we're back with my hair is a little bit messed up because I was wearing that cowboy hat, and we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to be looking at the bowl games for college, and I'm going to give off some of my predictions. Now, before I begin, I would like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show. whether it's a hot take, whether it's a burning question, or something that you're just dying to share. We're all ears. If you really want your comment and or question to get noticed, I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. Or, if Super Chat's not really your thing, then you can always use the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment as well to get your comments or donations recognized. Again, they really help the show. They make it much more interactive. It makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. And, excuse me, but with that out of the way, we can go ahead and get into these bowl games. Now, like I said before, these are going to be the bowl games that don't have any impact on the college football playoffs, right? Now, it should also be noted that there are a lot of bowl games. I'm just going to say that right now. There are a lot of bowl games. However, not all of them are really like all that, I should say. Like there's going to be some bowl games that are like going to be fantastic competition, but there's not going to be really that many that I think are going to be like, wow, that's amazing, right? And let me just look at these real quick. And all of the college games that are like in the football playoffs, I thought that they would be counted as bowl games, but they're all not. I mean, they don't have any sort of name on them, and not only that, they're also going to be played. There's actually going to be home field advantage in the postseason for college football, which is unprecedented. Like usually these big games and these playoff games, they're held on a neutral site. Not this one though. Not these games. And I believe that the future games, I think they're going to be called bowl games. I'm not entirely sure because again, this is a whole new thing and something that I never really learned because again, it was a whole new thing that was introduced into the NCAA season literally just last year. I mean, most of the time, at least from what I remember it in college football, every single playoff game was a bowl game. And even the college playoffs at the time, when there was just a 4-team bracket, those were bowl games as well. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but I'll figure that out, and I'll go ahead and I'll address that when the college football playoffs actually start. So for one, well, let's dive right into this. Now, this is going to be pretty long because there are a lot of bowl games. So the Army-Navy game, probably one of the most famous bowl games in the entirety of the NCAA. I actually went to the Army-Navy Bowl when they were at MetLife because that was the closest one to home. Great experience. I highly recommend going to these Army-Navy games. Now, while the offense isn't really that explosive, it's a very fun game. And these two teams, they're going to be incredibly run heavy. I expect that. But in this one, I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to go with the Navy. I'm going to go with the Naval Academy. Why? Every single time I've gone with the Naval Academy. The game that I went to, I was rooting for the Naval Academy, and while they had a much worse record than the Army, they somehow ended up winning. I don't know what it is, but I'm just going with the Naval Academy on this one. Now, this might be a big upset because the Army is ranked 22nd. The Navy was ranked at one point as well, but ultimately when they lost, they ended up dropping in the rankings because of course. But I'm going to go with the Navy. I'm going to stick with my pick, and I'm going to go with the Navy on this one. Next, South Alabama going up against Western Michigan. Now, this is the Veterans Bowl. I'm going to go ahead and pick South Alabama for this one. I don't know. It's just something about Alabama teams. They're not like the real Alabama, but still. Next, Memphis is going up against West Virginia on Tuesday, December 17th. And let's see. So Memphis is ranked number 25th. They have a 10-2 record compared to West Virginia, who is ranked 6-6. So I'm going to go with Memphis in the Frisco Bowl. Next is the Boca Raton Bowl with Western Kentucky and James Madison. Now, JMU, I don't know why. I really like the quarterback on JMU. I feel like the quarterback is a much better quarterback than the one on Western Kentucky. So I'm going to go stick with JMU just because I think quarterback play is going to be very important, and being able to handle the pressure in these bowl games is also going to be very important. Next, in the LA Bowl, California and the University of Las Vegas, they're going to go ahead and match up against each other. I'm going to go and pick UNLV. They are ranked 24th, and they also have a 10-3 record compared to California, who has a 6-6 record. And not only that, their quarterback, while I will say isn't really all that good, did not play the entirety of the season. Like, his stats aren't really that good. Let me rephrase that. His stats aren't really that good, but that's mainly because their main quarterback ended up quitting on them during the middle of the season, which was a really bold move and a very mean move, honestly. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that, but again, if you don't really pay the guy, then you're just allowing that to happen. Next is the New Orleans Bowl with GSMC and Sam Houston State. Now, these two teams are very, very good, but again, the big difference here is their quarterback. I think GSMC is going to have a much better chance to beat Sam Houston State, and I think the quarterback is going to make a couple less mistakes in this one. Next is Ohio going up against Jacksonville State in the Cure Bowl, and I'm going to go with Timothy Chalamet with this, and I'm going to go ahead and pick Ohio because he saw a lot of good things with Ohio. And this isn't Ohio State, by the way. This is the other Ohio, the one with the Ohio Bobcats. So I'm going to go with Ohio on this one. Next is the Jasperilla Bowl, or Jasperilla Bowl. Forgive me if I messed it up. I have no idea how it's pronounced. And this matchup is going to be between Tulane and Florida. Now, the Gators, Florida. There's a lot of Florida teams, so I just wanted to make it clear that it was the Gators that were going up against them. Now, the Gators, they're an SEC team compared to Tulane, which is an AAC team. So not only that, but Florida, they've also been able to get some rather impressive wins in the regular season. I mean, they did end up losing to Georgia, which is a little bit much, and I completely understand that. And they almost ended up they made it a challenge for Florida, but no, the University of Miami, but they ended up losing to Miami. And I don't know, they did beat Ole Miss earlier, which was the big game that I was referring to. And they also ended up beating the LSU Tigers. Now, Ole Miss was ranked at the time that they ended up beating them. So I think the Gators are they got the momentum, and they're going to be able to win in this game, especially being an SEC team. I mean, we all know that SEC teams are they seem to play much better football than the rest of the competition. Now, the other bowl games, again, I'm not covering the ones in the college football playoffs. The Myrtle Beach Bowl, Carolina is going up against UTSA, and I think UTSA is going to have a better chance in winning this one. Both of these teams are mid-tier. They both have a 6-6 record, but their quarterback, McCown, forgive me if I messed up that last name, he's phenomenal. He is a great college athlete. I mean, his stats, 3,168 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. They're far better than the quarterback on the other team, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with this one, with UTSA in this bowl. Next is the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, a very funny name. Fresno State is going up against Northern Illinois, and in this matchup, I'm actually going to go for the upset and pick Fresno State because, you always got to have some upsets here and there in these college bowls. Next is the Hawaii Bowl between South Florida and San Jose State. And again, another matchup with rather mid-tier teams, but I'm going to go ahead and pick San Jose State in this one. Next is Pittsburgh going up against Toledo in the Game Above Sports Bowl. And I don't know, there's something about Pittsburgh that I really like. Maybe it's because they have a friend of mine who is actually playing wide receiver on the team, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh in this one. I feel like they're going to be well prepped for this one. Next is the Rate Bowl between Rutgers and Kansas State. Now, I'm a big fan of Rutgers. Jersey, represent. And I'm going to go ahead and pick Rutgers, not just because, I have, not just because there's a bias, but because they've been surprisingly, now I will say they've had some really disappointing losses in this season, but they've played surprisingly well in a majority of the games. And they did go on a little bit of a losing streak, but they did start out the season with, I believe, a 4-0 record. So very, very impressive stuff coming in from Rutgers. And I know Kansas State, they get ranked most of the time. They've been getting ranked most of the time, especially after that ridiculous college performance in the first round of the college football playoffs when it was just a 14 format. But I think Rutgers is going to make a name for themselves in this one. Next is the 68 Ventures Bowl. Arkansas State is going up against Bowling Green. I'm going to have to speed through a lot of this. I'm going to go ahead and pick Arkansas State. Next is Oklahoma against the Navy in the Armed Forces Bowl. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Naval Academy in this one. Next is the Birmingham Bowl between Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt. Now, Georgia Tech, I will say that they did upset the University of Miami. Vanderbilt, they upset the University of Alabama. I'm going to go and pick Georgia Tech in this one. I'm just going to do that because their win against the University of Miami was more recent than Vanderbilt's win against Alabama. Then in the Liberty Bowl, Texas Tech is going up against Arkansas. I'm going to go and pick Texas Tech. Holiday Bowl, Syracuse is going up against Washington State. I'm going to go and pick Syracuse. Next, in the Las Vegas Bowl, the Aggies are going to go up against USC. Actually, no, Texas A&M. Excuse me. Whoa, wrong Texas team. Ugh. They're going up against USC. I'm going to go ahead and pick Texas A&M. Next is the Fenway Bowl, Connecticut going up against UConn, going up against North Carolina. I'm going to go on a whim, and I'm going to pick North Carolina in this one. UConn, they do have a much better record, but they also play in a much weaker conference. Boston College going up against Nebraska in the Pinstripe Bowl. I really like Boston College, so I'm going to go ahead and pick Boston College in this one. New Mexico Bowl between TCU and Louisiana. I'm going to go ahead and pick TCU in this matchup, and I accidentally scrolled up all the way for all these bowl games. That is no good. Next is Iowa State going up against Miami, Florida. The first bowl game between two ranked teams. They're going to play against each other in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I'm going to go ahead and pick my University of Miami. I love Cam Ward, future quarterback of the Giants, I hope. And I'm going to go ahead and pick the University of Miami in this one. Again, please be a Giant. Next, Miami is going up against Colorado State. Not the University of Miami, Miami OH. And I'm going to go ahead and pick Miami in this one. East Carolina going up against North Carolina State in the Military Bowl. And I'm going to go ahead and pick North Carolina State in this one. And then the other ranked bowl game, Alamo Bowl between BYU and Colorado. I'm going to go ahead and pick Colorado. Similar to the University of Miami, Shedeur Sanders most likely is going to have a big chance of winning or being the future quarterback of the New York Giants. Again, it really depends on how it goes and how the draft works. But I really like Colorado. I like their offense led by Shedeur. I also like Travis Hunter and the fact that he's able to play defense as elite as he can. BYU, while I will say they did have a fantastic season, they did suffer some disappointing losses. Next is Marshall going up against the Army. And in the Independence Bowl, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Army in this one. And then the final bowl game that I actually have time to go over is the Alabama against Michigan bowl game. They play in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pick Alabama for this one because, they're Alabama. And I will say, I do know that Michigan, they did come off of a very huge win in the final game against Ohio State. So they've proven that they can beat a top-ranked team. But I think that's really just Ohio State choking. I feel like that game was more of an Ohio State choke and Michigan capitalizing on that. I don't think Alabama is going to choke in this one, even though they've had some really, really big stinker moments in the regular season. I will say that. And, Jalen Milroe, he's a great quarterback, and I'm surprised he's not really like talked about a little bit more. But again, his passing stats, like his touchdown to interception ratio, isn't all that great. But that's a different story. So that's all that I have. That's like that's not all the bowl games, obviously, but those are the only bowl games where I really had time to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and go into a break, and then afterwards we're going to quickly recap all of the games in the NBA that took place over the weekend because I was unable to do that the other day. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we're going to do a quick recap of all of the NBA games that took place over the weekend. And we're going to dive right in because I know this segment is going to be long. So the Lakers, they ended up losing to the Hawks in a very disappointing way. Trae Young ended up hitting a game-winning three-pointer because Gabe Vincent forgot how to play defense and basically left Trae Young open to hit the three. I mean, when you're leaving Trae Young open at the final minutes of a game, I understand he's a very inefficient shooter at times. You can't leave him open in the game. You can't leave him open to end the game. But in this matchup between the Lakers, Trae Young played ridiculously well. He ended with 31 points and 20 assists. That is a fantastic stat line. LeBron also had a fantastic stat line with 39, 11, and 10, but of course ended up losing. Anthony Davis ended with 38, 10, and 8, but of course they ended up losing because D'Angelo Russell forgot how to play basketball, Cam Reddish can't score, and oh my God, it's just like, what is going on? Like, why can't the Lakers seem to win these games when the key players, LeBron played 43 minutes. This man is going to be 40 years old, and he played 43 minutes in this game, dropped a triple-double, and they still lost. Like, what more do the Lakers have to do? I mean, the Lakers are 12-11 right now, so less than ideal record and a little bit of a slump, but it's like, this roster is just bad. Like, it wasn't just Darvin Ham that was bad for the Lakers last season. This roster is incredibly bad. It is very, very bad. But let's go and continue on with the games. The Timberwolves, they ended up beating the Warriors 107-90 in the first matchup. Spoiler alert. Anthony Edwards ended with 30 points in this matchup. And then in the next game, the Magic, they played against the 76ers. It should be noted that Franz Wagner ended up getting an injury in the future, so I don't know how long he's going to be sidelined for, but so far the Eastern Conference, they've had a lot of injuries, and I mean, not saying that the Western Conference hasn't had a lot of injuries too, but Franz Wagner, like for the Magic, and like before that, Paolo Banchero, now I really don't think that the Magic are going to continue winning games without Franz Wagner, but I wouldn't be surprised if they prove me wrong again. But in this matchup, they ended up losing to the 76ers, 102-94. They lost to the Sixers without Joel Embiid, so very embarrassing on the Orlando Magic and in their part. They also had Franz Wagner in this game drop 30 points, and they still ended up losing. Now he knows what it feels like to be LeBron, but really this was just an embarrassing loss for the Magic. Next, the Celtics, they ended up beating the Bucks because of course they did. Despite Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard's efforts, Giannis ended with 30 points and 11 rebounds. Dame ended with 31 points. It just wasn't enough for the Celtics. It should also be noted the Celtics on a per-game average shoot way more three-pointers than two-pointers, which is like, I don't think it's something we've seen since the 2018 Houston Rockets. The Spurs, they matched up against the Kings, and they got absolutely destroyed. The Kings ended up winning 140 to 113. They had 4 players in the starting lineup end the game with 20 points or more. Meanwhile, on the Spurs side, there was no Victor Wembanyama, so Champagne, forgive me if I messed up that last name, ended with 30 points, but they still ended up losing. So, without Victor, it's very difficult to play defense, and without Victor, it's also very difficult for the Spurs to score. The Pacers, they ended up winning 132 against the Bulls to 132 to 123. And let's look at the box scores. Halliburton ended with 23 points, but of course Trae Young outplayed him on this day because he's a better point guard. Zach LaVine ended with 32 points in this game, but he still ended up losing. When are they going to trade Zach? That's a really good question. When are they going to trade Zach LaVine? Next, the Utah Jazz, they ended up destroying the Portland Trailblazers. They ended up winning 141 to 99, which is very embarrassing. The Trailblazers are like a Heckle and Jide team. It's weird. One day they beat the Timberwolves back-to-back. Then the other day they end up losing to one of the worst teams in the NBA in a blowout. I mean, 141 to 99 is ridiculous. John Collins, he ended the game with 20 points. And on the Blazers side, Jeremy Grant ended with 19 points. Next, the games that happened on Saturday. The Detroit Pistons, they ended up beating the Knicks surprisingly. They ended up winning 120 to 111 in this matchup. I'm going to speed through the rest of these because I want to be sure I have some time at the very end. The Mavericks, they ended up beating the Raptors 125 to 118. The Cavs, they ended up beating the Hornets 116 to 102. The Thunder ended up beating the Pelicans 119 to 109. The Nuggets surprisingly ended up losing to the Wizards 122 to 113, despite the fact that Jokic ended with 56 points, 16 rebounds, and 8 assists. He outscored the entirety of the starting lineup. He alone outscored the entirety of the starting lineup. It's like this man is the best player in the NBA right now, and there is zero question about it. In fact, let me actually go ahead and quickly do math because I want to say something that I think is rather crazy. Okay, so 36 is how much the rest of the starting lineup scored, and you add 36 to 21, and yes, so Jokic was 1 point off from outscoring his entire team. He ended with 56 points. The rest of the team ended with 57. That is ridiculous. That is incredible numbers for any player. And he lost. What more is he supposed to... Just give him the MVP now. What more is he supposed to do? And also, Jordan Poole in this game, he ended with 39 points. He did take 23s though, so like you should get 39 points if you're taking that many threes. But that's besides the point. The Grizzlies, they ended up shocking the Boston Celtics and beat them at home with John Morant dropping 32 points. And on the final game on Saturday, the Miami Heat, they ended up beating the Phoenix Suns. Again, another surprise. This is a Phoenix Suns team. I mean, they didn't have Kevin Durant, so maybe not that surprising. Jimmy Butler played well, 24 points. Bam Adebayo played really well, 25 points. But again, a lot of surprising losses, especially that loss against the Wizards between the Denver Nuggets. The Bucks, they ended up beating the Nets because of course they did. I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo is just that guy. Ended with 34 points and 11 rebounds. I believe he's averaging around 28 points per game and shooting 60% from the field. Actually, no. He's averaging 32 points per game. I am sorry, Giannis. I was not familiar with your game. 32 points per game and shooting 60% from the field. Giannis is the second best basketball player in the NBA right now, without a doubt. And let's see. Warriors, they ended up beating the Timberwolves in the second time they matched up. Obviously, they made some adjustments going into this game, and they really worked. Now, there was no LeBron between the Lakers and the Blazers, yet the Lakers still ended up winning. This was the first game that LeBron ended up missing in this season. Anthony Davis ended with 30 points and 11 rebounds, and D'Angelo Russell, for some reason, remembered how to play basketball, ended with 28 points and 14 assists. Why can't he do this when LeBron is playing? Nobody knows. Next, the 76ers, they ended up beating the Chicago Bulls in this matchup. Tyrese Maxey ended with a triple-double, 25, 14, and 11. Paul George ended with 12. Joel Embiid ended with 31 and 12. And Zach LaVine ended with 30 and still ended up losing. The Hornets, they ended up beating the Pacers. A little bit shocking considering how the Hornets did not have LaMelo Ball. Brandon Miller had 26 points in this matchup, but again, very embarrassing for the Pacers to lose to the Hornets in this one. Next, the Cavs, they ended up losing to the Heat. Another surprising loss over this weekend. Heat won 122 to 113. And the Nuggets, they ended up destroying the Hawks, taking revenge, 141 to 111, or taking their anger out, I should say, after losing to the Wizards. And the Suns, they ended up losing to the Magic, 115 to 110. I believe this was the game where Franz Wagner ended up getting injured. Or they might have been the previous game because he did not play in this game at all. Next, the Spurs, they ended up beating the Pelicans 121 to 116. There was Victor Wembanyama played in this one, 25 points in 26 minutes. I mean, he's just phenomenal. Grizzlies, they ended up beating the Wizards 140 to 112. Houston, they ended up beating the Clippers 117 to 106. And the Kings, they ended up destroying the Jazz 141 to 97. And then yesterday, only one game was played. The Knicks, they ended up beating the Raptors 113 to 108, thanks to Karl Anthony Towns hitting the dagger against them. So those are all the games that happened over the weekend in the NBA. And next, in the fourth segment, we're going to go and talk about what this NBA season has proven so far. I've already done 2 parts on this, so this is going to be a third part. We're going to do that right after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to be talking about the NBA season and what this NBA season has proven so far. I've already done 2 parts on that. Excuse me, I just blanked there for a second. I already done 2 parts on that. So now we're going to go into this third part. And again, this was inspired by the YouTube/content creator Swish Out, and I just want to go ahead and give my props to him. I'm not trying to steal his idea or anything. I just thought that was a very good. I just thought it was a very good segment that I could do, and I'm going to give off some of my own. And in this one, what I'm going to talk about is LeBron, of course. So one thing that this NBA season has proven so far, at least to me, is that LeBron still got it. I mean, he's the oldest player in the NBA. He is about to be 40 towards the end of this month, and he still is one of the best players in the NBA. One of the best players at his position, and I mean, by far the best 40-year-old to ever play in the NBA, hands down. Now, I will say that his numbers, they aren't like typical LeBron averages, I will say that. I mean, he's averaging only 23 points per game. Again, only 23 points per game for someone that's 40. It goes to show you the standards that he has set. But usually he averages around 25 points per game. He's never averaged less than 25, but he's also averaging 8 rebounds and 9 assists. So he's taking on a much more like a facilitator role. It also doesn't help that he had that little slump after he tied Kyle Korver where he just forgot how to play basketball. It was a really, really bad slump, one of the worst slumps of his entire career, but he's shown that he still has a lot left in the tank. Now, I will say that this might be the first season where we see like a sign of decline coming in from LeBron, because again, 23 points per game compared to averaging 25 points per game. It's like, the decline is happening now, it seems like. It also, what doesn't really help that argument is how he ended up going on that slump for a couple of games. I forgot how many games it was, but I do know it was a lot of them. Like, he forgot how to shoot the ball for a very, very long time, going 0 for 24 in a 6-game span. It was very, very embarrassing. But nonetheless, he's proven that he still has a lot left in the tank. I mean, in the matchup against the Hawks, that was like, you could make an argument that that was the first matchup where he actually played great, but the matchup against the Heat was another matchup where he played really well. Now, he was the only person on the Lakers that actually came to hoop that night, because Anthony Davis in that game went 3 for 14. Meanwhile, LeBron going 12 for 18 and ended with 29 points. It's like, what more do you want from a 40-year-old? And I know a lot of people, they like to poke at how they use LeBron's age as an excuse, and they also use it as a way to bolster his resume and his legacy. Yes, because that's how it works. Like, you do not expect a 40-year-old to be doing the kinds of things that he's doing, and you also don't really expect a 40-year-old to be doing the things that he's doing. So if LeBron is playing bad, you expect a 40-year-old to play bad. If LeBron is playing well, you don't expect a 40-year-old to play well. So it's like, of course it's going to be used as an excuse, and of course it's going to be used as a way to bolster his legacy. But regardless, this season has shown that LeBron, he still has a lot left in the tank, and that there's still a lot more that he could do in the NBA. I wouldn't be surprised if he could play maybe one other year, maybe 2 more years, but again, it doesn't really seem like LeBron is too keen on that idea. Maybe he wants to, maybe he wouldn't want to play for as long as he could because he's afraid that that'll affect his legacy. I mean, Michael Jordan, he played on the Wizards. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that. But I guarantee you, people are going to bring up the time that he had the worst 6-game span of his entire career at age 39. I guarantee you people are going to still remember that and bring it up. People still bring up the fact that he ended up losing the finals in 2011. I understand that is a very embarrassing loss, but let's not act like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or every single great to ever exist in NBA history did not have an embarrassing playoff loss. Let's stop it right there. And for those of you who support Jordan, you might say, oh, he's 6-0 in the finals. Where was the disappointing loss? Well, for one, he could not get past the Detroit Pistons. It took for the Pistons to get older for him to actually get past that, and it also took prime Scottie Pippen to be on the team for that. That's one. 2, the matchup against the Orlando Magic in 1995. Now, I know a lot of those MJ fans are going to say that Michael Jordan was coming back from baseball and he wasn't at 100%. He was averaging 36 points per game in that series. He was at 100%. He definitely was playing some of the best basketball that anybody has seen in the postseason. There was nothing. There was no excuse for that, but they love to make that excuse that he was coming back from baseball. Like, if he was playing throughout that entirety of the NBA season, they would have miraculously beaten the Orlando Magic. And no, they wouldn't have. Michael Jordan on the documentary himself admitted that they were lacking at the power forward position, which was a position that the Orlando Magic, where they had Horace Grant, which was the power forward before Dennis Rodman, and the power forward that helped the Chicago Bulls end up winning 3 championships straight. Like, that was a key player to their offense, and they did not have that key player. Despite Michael Jordan averaging 36, 39 points per game, it wasn't enough because they did not have the right matchups. Then a lot of people, they like to say that, then the following year when Michael Jordan ended up sweeping the Orlando Magic, because he actually was warmed up and he actually played a whole season. Horace Grant was injured in that series, so it was already an uneven matchup. But that's besides the point. That's a little bit of a rant. Yeah, that's how I feel with Michael Jordan and LeBron. I think LeBron, and that's another thing that the season has proven. LeBron is easily the greatest basketball player to ever play basketball, period. No questions about it. And next, because we are a little bit low on time, I only prepared 2, so I made sure to rant for that one. But so far, this NBA season has proven that the Western Conference is way better than the Eastern Conference. Now, before, a lot of people, they usually just say that as a joke. Like, a lot of people, they just, this is sort of like a known thing, but it's like, it's becoming very, very apparent now in this season. Like, before you could make an argument where it was like, I mean, you know, the West was better than the East, but it was marginal. It was really, really close, right? Like, you could make that argument. Now, you really cannot. So, looking at the standings right now, there are only 4 teams in the Eastern Conference that have not lost 10 games. In the Western Conference, there are 5 teams who have not lost 10 games. Not only that, but in the Western Conference, there are several teams that have 12 wins or more. In fact, all the way down to the 12th seed, every single team in the Western Conference has 12 wins or more. But on the Eastern Conference side, all the way down to the 12th seed, the 76ers have only 7 wins. So the 12th seed on the Eastern Conference has 7 wins. The 12th seed on the Western Conference has 12 wins. And I mean, the top four teams in the Eastern Conference, they are the top dogs, and most likely they aren't going to be. There's no other team that's really going to make it past those 4 teams. The 4 teams being the Cavs, the Celtics, the Magic, and the Knicks. It doesn't really seem like, most of the teams in the Eastern Conference, at least right now, are going to be able to put up much of a fight against those teams. But over in the West, it's way more undecided. So, I mean, the Thunder, they're 18-5. The Grizzlies, they're 17-8. The Grizzlies, like a team that I did not expect to even make it this high this early in the season, they're 17-8. The Rockets, another team I didn't expect, 16-8. The Mavericks, I expected that, 16-8. Warriors, I didn't expect that, 14-9. Clippers, did not expect them to be ranked higher than the Lakers this year, 14-11. The Nuggets, 12-10. I did not expect them to tank. The Lakers, 13-11. The Timberwolves, 12-11. So all the way down to the 10th seed, the Suns, which was a team that was ranked number 1 earlier in the season, is now ranked at number 10 because they're 12-11. This, all the way from the 1 to the 10 seed, you have contenders. You have teams that have a legitimate chance of winning the NBA title. But over on the East, it's only the top 4 teams. Like, it is that apparent how many games and how much better the Western Conference is now than the Eastern Conference. It is uncanny. And the teams that are negative, the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference is a negative team. The Brooklyn Nets, 10-14. But over on the West, the only teams that are negative are the Kings, Blazers, the Jazz, and the Pelicans. I can count those teams with just one hand. But over for the Eastern Conference, the Nets being negative, Pacers are also negative, Bulls are also negative, Pistons, they're also negative, 76ers, negative, Hornets, Raptors, and the Wizards. All of those teams are negative. Like, the skill base is apparent, and like the competitiveness of the West and the East, it's not even close anymore. So that's all that I have in this 4th segment. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the special 5th segment where I talk about whether or not the Chiefs are really the luckiest team in NFL history. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned. And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast by the GSMC Sports Network. I just blanked there for a second, excuse me. But in this fifth segment, we are going to talk about whether or not the Kansas City Chiefs really are the luckiest team in the history of the NFL. So I'm sure you guys know that the Chiefs, they've had a lot of close games. In fact, this is sort of an uncharacteristic amount of close games. And Patrick Mahomes has also been, through the most part of the season, he's played uncharacteristically bad. Despite this, the Chiefs, they've already clinched their division, and it seems like they're going to get a first-round bye. They just win games. It seems like the only game that they ended up losing was the game against the Bills, the Buffalo Bills, and that was thanks to the help of Josh Allen being Josh Allen. I mean, this Chiefs team, the way that they've won some of these games, a lot of people, they think it's very, very lucky. There's a trend going around, and there's a little bit of a meme that the Chiefs, they use devil magic to get these wins. And really, when you see how they win these games, it is a little bit lucky. I will say that, they have been getting rather lucky. I mean, there have been several games where the referees, they seem to call in favor of the Chiefs. That's another joke that's going around. There was also instances where they end up blocking kicks. They end up violating some of the rules. But, I remember in one game, I believe it was the third game that the Chiefs played, there was a pass interference that wasn't called and ultimately ended the game in favor of the Chiefs. I remember a couple of weeks ago, they ended up winning the game off of blocking a field goal. And just recently, they ended up winning a game against the Chargers by doinking a field goal in. And a lot of people, they're just like, this is ridiculously lucky. We've never seen any sort of team that's been this lucky before, all of that. But really, we've seen teams that are this lucky. We have seen teams that are lucky before. And in my opinion, they are not the luckiest team in the entirety of the NFL. They are not the luckiest team to ever play in NFL history at all. The team that is the luckiest team in the history of football, without a doubt, the luckiest team in the history of football is the New England Patriots with Tom Brady. We are going into that, and we are ranting about Tom, ladies and gentlemen. The New England Patriots were by far the luckiest team in NFL history, and there is no other team that is going to even come close to that. And I know what you're thinking, but it's Tom Brady. He has 7 rings. And he's the reason why the Chiefs, the Patriots are have as many championships as they do. How is it that he's lucky? How is it that he's lucky when he has 7 championship rings? That's impossible. What? And I'm going to answer most of that with as much as I can. In fact, you know what? Let me know in the comments if you guys want me to do a segment talking about some of the luckiest moments in the Patriots' career and in the Patriots' tenure as a franchise, as well as Tom Brady's luckiest moments, because he has a lot of them. So I already have one that's queued up right here. We all know this. We all remember this. I wasn't born when this happened, but we all know exactly what this is. This is a season-ending turnover that Tom Brady caused that was overturned by the Tuck rule. I know it was a rule at the time. I know Brady fans are going to be like, oh, but it was a rule. Other quarterbacks had to deal with this too. No other quarterback in the history of football has ever gotten bailed out by this rule in this big of a moment. You can take that to the bank. And to make matters even worse, they didn't even score a touchdown afterwards. They ended up watching their kicker make a field goal, straight up drill the field goal in the middle of a blizzard. And you think the luck stops there? No, it does not. Tom Brady, the starting quarterback at the time, and played next game. He got hurt next game. But guess what? The Patriots, they had Drew Bledsoe coming off the bench, who was a all-pro NFL player at the time. And he was the starting quarterback before Tom Brady took over the starting quarterback position. And of course they were going to be able to win because that was his team. He was already the starting quarterback. The fact that they had 2 starting caliber quarterbacks on the roster, are you telling me that that's not lucky? Blasphemy. Then in the Super Bowl game, in the matchup in the Super Bowl, Tom Brady and the Patriots offensively only scored 13 points in that Super Bowl. And they also benefited from their defense scoring a pick 6 against the greatest show on turf. And to make matters even crazier, one of the craziest stats, Tom Brady is the only quarterback in the history of the NFL to win 2 Super Bowls scoring 13 points. He is 2-0 in the Super Bowl when he leads his offense to scoring 13 points. Every other quarterback in NFL history to lead their offense to scoring only 13 points has lost in that Super Bowl. And I could go on and on with all of the moments where Tom Brady was lucky. In fact, let's continue. The Patriots in, I believe, 2008, Tom Brady played in the AFC championship game. They won the game despite him playing absolutely terrible. He threw no touchdowns. He threw 2 interceptions, including one in the fourth quarter because he is so clutch. But of course, he ends up winning that game. Another game and a couple more games and a couple more stats. Tom Brady and the Patriots, actually just Tom Brady, is 3-1 in the postseason when he throws 3 interceptions. He has a better record in the postseason throwing 3 interceptions than Aaron Rodgers does throwing 3 touchdowns. He has 2 championship games where he's thrown 3 interceptions and he's ended up winning. Like, how much luckier does it get than this guy right here? Like, one of the luckiest athletes ever. And on top of that, the Patriots, with Tom Brady, they are 3-0 in the playoffs against the overtime coin toss. They have never lost an overtime coin toss in the postseason ever. Like, you want to talk about luck, that is also incredibly lucky. Another thing that makes them lucky, against the Chiefs, earlier, before Tom Brady ended up leaving to go to Tampa Bay, and I believe it was Patrick Mahomes' first year as a starting quarterback in the NFL. So the Patriots and Tom Brady ended up throwing a game-losing interception, but of course the Kansas City Chiefs ended up lining up offside, completely negating the play. And they ultimately scored a touchdown, but then Patrick Mahomes answered with a field goal to tie the game. But he never got to see the ball again because the Patriots ended up scoring on their first drive because they won the overtime coin toss. It is unbelievable how many times he's won the coin toss and has never lost a coin toss in the postseason. It's like, how does that happen? Nobody knows. And these are all just playoff moments, by the way. They also, against the Colts, not the first time they played the Colts, the second time they played the Colts, Peyton Manning in that year threw 46 touchdowns, I believe. And I believe he broke the NFL record at the time for total touchdowns thrown. The defense for the Pats held that team to just 3 points. They held MVP Peyton Manning to 3 points. The number 1 ranked offense being held to 3 points in a playoff game is absolutely ridiculous. And it's unbelievably lucky. And in a Super Bowl game against the Eagles, the first time that they played the Eagles, not the second time where they ended up losing, Brady, throughout the entirety of the second half, only had to throw 1 pass beyond the line of scrimmage. And, of course, I'm going to mention the Super Bowl that Tom Brady ended up winning 28-3. Yes, I know all of you guys are going to completely despise me with this, and I know all of you guys are probably going to be like, he's absolutely ridiculous. How on earth were they lucky when they were down 28-3? And I will tell you how. Tom Brady and the Patriots that season, the Patriots defense held the number 1 ranked offense and NFL MVP Matt Ryan to 21 points. This was well below their average of 32 points per game. Brady, he threw a pick 6 in this matchup, which is the longest touchdown pass he's thrown in the playoffs, by the way. Shout out to Barry McCockner. And the let's see. Let me think of what else happened in that game. Oh, the Falcons, they had the ball in the red zone twice in the second half, but they had to punt both times. I'm going to repeat that. The Falcons had the ball in the red zone, but they had to punt both times. In the second half of the Super Bowl, red zone, and they ended up punting the ball. Like, what? The number one ranked offense punted the ball in the red zone? That is ridiculously lucky. Not to mention the Julian Edelman catch that kept the drive alive for the Patriots. Now, at around 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter of that game, the Patriots and Tom Brady. So Tom Brady, he threw a pick. Essentially, he threw a pick. The ball hit the linebacker's hands, but the ball went up into the sky, and Julian Edelman was able to make the catch. If the interception was actually caught by the defender, it would have all but ended the game. But of course, it did not. And also have to mention how Tom Brady ended up winning the overtime coin toss after sending the game into overtime. Like, is he not lucky? I can go way more in depth if I actually have time to prepare for this, and because again, there's so many moments where he's actually been lucky, and there's so many moments where the Patriots as a franchise have been lucky with this guy at quarterback. So, no. The Chiefs, they are not the luckiest team in NFL history. By far, they are not. The Patriots, they are a much luckier team, and I'm not saying that luck is bad. Luck is a huge part in winning football games. Like, you need luck on your side in order to win some of these games. So I completely understand why that you just need it to happen. It's just the Patriots, they've had it happen way more times than any other team. So in my opinion, the Chiefs, they are not the luckiest team in NFL history, and just because they have been lucky in a lot of their regular season wins, it does not nearly come close to how lucky Tom Brady and the Patriots have been. So that's all that I have in this fifth segment, and that's it for the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether it's a hot take, whether it's a burning question, or something that you're just dying to share. We're all ears, and if you really want your comment and or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat, or you can go ahead and use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net, and you can send in your comments and donations that way. They really, really help the show. And thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a